I'll start with the oldest, which is Solar Warden. They were started back in the late 70s, 80s, during the SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, I think is what that stood for, during, just before and after Reagan.
What was Solar Warden's original responsibility?
They policed the solar system from intruders, and
that would be groups that are not part of these 40 that are the Super Federation?
Right.
Okay.
And also somewhat of a, space traffic control, air traffic control. They took care of that.
Couldn't some ET group just interfere and invade with vastly superior weapons and technology? I mean, how could a group from the 80s be able to police our solar system against potentially anybody that could try to invade here?
Well, they wouldn't have been able to hold their own with a large invasive force. But most of the groups that passed through were only in maybe 1 to a handful of vessels. There's so many different groups that pass through our area.
And I would guess it's sort of like gang warfare, where the 40-some-odd ET groups that have sort of claimed this as their turf, with whatever level of technology they have, they're also going to defend their home turf from an invasion. Right. So Solar Warden is not necessarily meeting a tactical force. They're not having a weapons-up fighting stance when you say they're policing the solar system, or are they? Later?
They would engage small numbers when they had to, but they were not ever a huge force to be reckoned with.
So most of these unwanted entrances into our solar system would be more small groups of ETs or single craft that are trying to be sneaky?
Right.
Just trying to slip in?
Marauder groups that would come in and do hit and runs to come in and take things and leave. As Solar Warden has started a Cold War, pretty much a Cold War, they started to fly in front of the International Space Station to accidentally show their vessels, little things like that in the beginning.
If Solar Warden is going to try to create disclosure where obviously the other parts of the space program don't want it, couldn't that lead to a shooting war between these factions?
Yes. You have the ICC, the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, which is pretty much the largest. They own pretty much all the infrastructure out in the solar system. You have...
and what corporations?
Just about every aerospace and other than aerospace, it's a huge amount of...
Lockheed, Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, Hughes Aircraft.
Yes, just all the above, and not just American corporations.
Right.
All of these aerospace companies and other engineering companies started to build all of the secret space technology. The military and the government itself could not do this. They did not have the ability to build all this. They didn't have the infrastructure. But the Germans highly coveted this infrastructure because they were already out there and they needed this infrastructure to grow. They had big plans for what they had a foothold out there, and they wanted to grow. They had large plans, and these plans, when they brought information to some of these aerospace companies that they had been out to the asteroid belt and found entire asteroids that were made of precious metals that they had already been mining some, dollar signs popped in their eyes. In the eyes of these U.S. capitalists. So they fully got behind this German grand plan to build out a giant infrastructure into outer space.
How soon after they got to Mars and they got successful, stable encampments did they start building facilities on asteroids or other moons?
Almost immediately.
Really?
Yeah, the Germans had already started mining certain asteroids, and this is one of the reasons the ICC wanted to go out there. They heard there were asteroids out there that had platinum and gold.
Huh.
And the talk down here on Earth about there being a discrepancy in gold being rare, silver being rare, that is a total manipulation. I mean, just on Earth, the syndicates have hidden a bunch of gold.
Right.
There's gold, tons of gold. And the gold that they're finding on in these asteroid belts, atomically, you look at Earth gold and this gold, they're the same. They don't have a different atomic structures. It's gold.
Wow.
So there is plenty of gold in the solar system, and so many tons of gold and platinum and silver and other elements in the asteroid belt.
Could you actually find entire asteroids that are just like a piece of gold or a piece of silver?
Well, I wouldn't say that they're entirely a big nugget of gold, but are very much gold.
Did the ICC or the Germans develop advanced computer technology faster than we did on Earth that they could start to use in all this robotic mining and things?
Yes, they've had computer systems and quantum computers much, much longer than way before Bill Gates and IBM started to put out motherboards and integrated chips. The ICC always kept the most advanced toys.
What is it about the Dark Fleet that earns the name Dark?
A number of reasons. In Black Ops, when there's a dark program, it is completely compartmentalized to where no one receives any intelligence. The other secret space programs received very little information about the Dark Fleet's mandate,
really?
What they were doing, what they were up to. Their bases were completely autonomous. Other secret space programs did not get to go to their bases. Their craft were of a different design, usually. They had several different types of vessels that you would see that you would associate with them.
Well, could you describe some of what made these vessels different? What were their characteristics?
Yeah, and one of them is a very large wedge-shaped that is very much like Star Wars, the destroyers, I guess, very much like those. But they're a little bit more sleek.
What about the little thing on top? Is that there?
Similar,
Really?
but not as high, but
okay.
Yeah, similar. There's also a very large diamond-shaped vessel that they have. They have a very large pumpkin seed-shaped vessel.
When you say very large now, what are we talking?
Over 600 feet across.
Okay.
But those are smaller than the large wedge-shaped vessels. And all we've really known about them is that they fight, they're an offensive force. They are for going and doing offensive type of work alongside the Draco. They go outside the solar system on, I guess, conquest or defending Draco territory, helping the Draco on military expeditions. The ICC has helped them build out a lot of this and these vessels and weaponry, and then the Draco group has helped them enhance it even more so for offensive duties outside of the solar system. And they spend almost all of their time completely outside the solar system. And we hadn't received, we knew of, there's one of their bases on the moon that is quite a ways from the Lunar Operation Command, that is a kind of shaped like a pyramid with the top chopped off.
Yeah, and you have an illustration of that we can bring up.
That's not
here.
my illustration. She needs full credit for this image. She had been abducted and taken to this facility. I was very surprised when people wrote me and someone else had described this same facility on the moon.
And it looked exactly like what you saw.
It looked almost exactly, pretty close. But it's a very good representation. And it's been almost impossible to get good intelligence about what's going on there. The Dark Fleet is completely human-ran. They do answer to and work alongside the Draco Alliance. They're allies, and they go out and they do offensive battles and offensive expeditions together outside the solar system.
What are they going for? What is the offense about? What is the goal or the objective?
We assume that it's conquest or keeping certain areas secure or reined in their empire, but we really don't know. It's been very difficult to get information and intelligence about the Dark Fleet. And there's been a few defectors from the Dark Fleet that were stuck inside of the outer barrier that was erected. Most of the Dark Fleet was stuck outside. So, and whatever information has been gleaned from those defectors, I have not heard. So they have been a very large mystery.
Why would anybody want to cooperate? Why would any humans from here want to cooperate with these reptilians that are basically like biblical demons or devils?
Well, one person's demon and devil is another person's God.
Sure. So we don't really know exactly what they're doing out there. But you said that when this outer barrier went up, a lot of them got locked out of our solar system.
Yes.
But it appears that a significant portion of their command structure, their elite, were actually in our solar system when the barrier went up?
Yes. Yep. Command control and communications were still here. And a lot of their operational forces were outside doing what they do when this outer barrier was raised. So they became stuck outside of this field around our entire solar system that is way, way out past out where the heliosphere is, out past the Oort cloud. It's huge, and they can't come back. So the structure that was here has somewhat been cannibalized into the ICC and defected to the Alliance.
If you saw somebody from the Dark Fleet, what are they going to be dressed in? What do they look like?
They were very distinctive. A lot of the times they usually, it's almost out of Star Wars again. They looked very stern, very arrogant, like they felt very elite. They wore black stormtrooper kind of clothes, just very stern-like, very totalitarian acting. And a lot of the people that ended up going into this program came from a lot of the German secret society, Nazi kind of programs. A lot of them and their ancestors are people that were born later on after these breakaway civilizations occurred, have joined.
So do these Dark Fleet personnel actually do they have homes here on Earth? Do they go out to work? Do they drive into a local military base and portal out?
I would assume that they are 100% vested off-world.
The way you're describing it sounds very military. I'm wondering, is it all men, or are there women in the Dark Fleet too?
I'm sure there are women, but I personally only saw men. Yes, they're very regimental, very totalitarian, very, the energy you feel from them is very unnerving. They don't feel like pleasant people at all.
Are there different races of normal humans that we'd see on Earth in the Dark Fleet?
Yeah, it's not a
really
Caucasian purity kind of.
You mentioned that the Draco have different reptilian types, and you said there's insectoids as well. Do they commingle with these humans in the Dark Fleet, or is the Dark Fleet simply a human fleet that is a support crew for the Draco Alliance?
They are there. It's a completely human fleet that flies in support of and alongside the Draco fleet.
So you're not going to see extraterrestrials on these ships?
I don't think so. I've heard people talk about advisors, maybe one or, some advisors being on board, but this is like second, third-hand information that I've heard people talking about. There's a lot of mystery about, that has been so compartmentalized about the Dark Fleet. That is one of the biggest secrets still remaining, even within those in the Secret Space Program Alliance, unless there's information they haven't shared with me recently that they have found out. The Dark Fleet had a lot of secrets. I'll start with the oldest, which is Solar Warden. They were started back in the late 70s, 80s during the SDI. So somewhat of a, space traffic control, air traffic control. They took care of that.
Couldn't some ET group just interfere and invade with vastly superior weapons and technology? I mean, how could a group from the 80s be able to police our solar system against potentially anybody that could try to invade here?
Well, they wouldn't have been able to hold their own with a large invasive force. But most of the groups that passed through were only in maybe one to a handful of vessels. There's so many different groups that pass through our area.
And I would guess it's sort of like gang warfare, where the 40-some-odd ET groups that have sort of claimed this as their turf, with whatever level of technology they have, they're also going to defend their home turf from an invasion. Right. So Solar Warden is not necessarily meeting a tactical force. They're not having a weapons-up fighting stance when you say they're policing the solar system, or are they?
They would engage small numbers when they had to, but they were not strategic defense initiative, I think is what that stood for, during, just before and after Reagan.
What was Solar Warden's original responsibility?
They policed the solar system from intruders, and
that would be groups that are not part of these 40 that are the Super Federation?
Right.
Okay.
And